The Spartans, the only soldiers of antiquity, whose name remains synonymous with perfect warrior 2,500 years later. The Spartans were citizen soldiers of the Greek city-state of Sparta. Training began at age 7 in the agoge, a brutal system involving controlled starvation, constant combat, and survival in nature. Only the strongest survived until age 20 to become full hoplites. They lived in barracks until age 30, training daily. Their wives managed estates while they dedicated their lives entirely to war. The Spartans dominated Greece for nearly 200 years through absolute tactical superiority. At the Battle of Thermopylae, 480 BC, 300 Spartans and 700 allies held off 150,000 Persians for 3 days, killing around 20,000 before being overwhelmed. That casualty ratio, 1 to 95, is statistically impossible in ancient warfare. Their phalanx formation was impenetrable. Overlapping shields, 2.5-meter spears, absolute discipline, they never retreated. But the Spartans had a fatal flaw, a small population. Only sons of full citizens could become Spartans. After the Battle of Leuctra, 371 BC, where they lost 400 elite warriors, they never recovered. The citizen soldier population fell from 8,000 to less than 1,000 within a century. Extreme eugenics and suicidal exclusivity destroyed the very society they built. The Spartans proved that extreme training creates supreme soldiers. But societies built only on war eventually run out of warriors. The Persian Immortals, the only military unit in history that maintained exactly 10,000 men through instant replacement. The Immortals were the elite guard of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, called one Immortals, because when one soldier died or was incapacitated, he was immediately replaced, keeping the number constant at 10,000. They wore scale armor, wicker shields covered with leather, short spears, and composite bows. Their clothing was richly colored and decorated with gold. They were recruited from all provinces of the empire based on military merit. The Immortals conquered the largest empire the ancient world had seen. From India to Greece, from Egypt to Central Asia, they marched with luxury baggage, servants, and even personal harems. They were the vanguard of every Persian army. At Thermopylae, they were the ones who finally flanked the Spartans after 3 days. They defeated Babylonians, Lydians, Egyptians, and Ionian Greeks. They directly protected the King of Kings. But the Immortals had a crucial weakness: inadequate equipment for close combat. Their wicker shields couldn't stop Greek spears. Their scale armor was inferior to solid bronze. At the Battle of Plataea, they were massacred by Greek hoplites, their short spears useless against 2.5-meter pikes. Alexander the Great wiped them out completely at Issus and Gaugamela. Numbers and morale can't defeat superior technology. The Immortals demonstrated that psychology matters as much as tactics, but no mystical name can replace proper equipment. The Roman Legionaries, the soldiers who turned Rome from a city-state into an empire that lasted 500 years. A legionary was the backbone of the Roman army. Roman citizens serving for 25 years. Brutal training included 30-kilometer marches with 40 kilograms of gear, fortification building, and daily hand-to-hand combat. They wore larica segmentata, wielded the gladius, pilum, and scutum rectangular shield. They were not just soldiers, they were engineers who built roads, bridges, aqueducts, and forts. Roman legionaries conquered territory from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Mesopotamia. A single legion, 5,000 men, could defeat armies of 50,000 barbarians through discipline, superior equipment, and modular tactics. They built complete forts every night during campaigns. Walls, towers, trenches. They fought in the testudo, tortoise formation. Nearly impervious to arrows, Julius Caesar conquered all of Gaul with just 8 legions against millions of Celts. But the legionary system came at a brutal cost. Only citizens could serve. When Rome began recruiting barbarians in the 4th century, discipline collapsed. Professional legionaries were expensive, paid in land and gold. When the empire could no longer afford them, the legions fragmented into private armies of generals, The perfect military machine was destroyed by inflation and fiscal crises. The Legionaries proved that organization and engineering defeat individual bravery. But even perfect machines need fuel, money. The Mubarizun, Islamic champions who challenged enemies to single combat, while entire armies watched. The Mubarizun were elite duelists in medieval Islamic armies. The Arabic word means those who step forth for single combat. Before battles, Mubarizun would ride out shouting challenges. The opponent would send out their own champion. Thousands of soldiers stopped to watch. They were equipped with sword, lance, full armor, and a swift Arabian horse. Mubarizun decided battles before they began. At the Battle of Yarmouk, Byzantine general Vahan sent his best champion, killed within seconds by Mubarizun Khalid ibn al-Walid. At Hattin, Saladin used champions to break crusader morale. During the Crusades, Frankish knights often refused Mubarizun duels. They knew losing a champion could cause mass desertion. Yet the Mubarizun system had a fatal flaw. It depended on mutual honor. When Europeans began using crossbows and longbows, mounted champions became easy targets. At Arsuf, Richard the Lionheart ordered archers to specifically target Mubarizun, breaking rules of combat. Mongol guerrilla tactics ignored duels entirely with gunpowder and muskets in the 16th century. Champion duels became obsolete. The Mubarizun vanished when war stopped being personal. War elephants, the tanks of antiquity that spread panic merely by appearing on the battlefield. War elephants were trained pachyderms used in battle. Originating from India, they carried towers with 4 to 6 archers, weighed 5 tons, and stood 3 meters tall. Armored in metal or hardened leather, with bronze blades on their tusks, handlers controlled them with hooks behind the ears. Carthaginians, Persians, Indians, and Greeks, elephants caused unmatched psychological terror. At Hydaspes, Porus's 200 elephants caused thousands of Macedonian casualties. Hannibal crossed the Alps with 37 elephants, terrifying the Romans at Trebia. But elephants had fatal weaknesses. They died easily to flaming arrows, panicked at fire, and trampled their own troops in retreat. At Zama, 202 BC, Scipio created corridors in his ranks. Hannibal's elephants charged through harmlessly. In India, Alexander used 6-meter sarissas to keep distance. War elephants proved that psychological weapons only work once, enemies adapt, and logistics matter more than raw power. The Vikings, the only warriors who caused so much trauma that Europeans prayed, "God, deliver us from the fury of the Northmen." Vikings were Scandinavians, Norwegians, Swedes, Danes, who raided Europe between 793 to 1066 AD. Not just warriors, traders, explorers, and settlers. Armed with axes, swords, spears, and round shields, their advantage was naval. Drakkar, longships, could sail both oceans and shallow rivers. They appeared without warning, raided coastal monasteries, looted, and vanished before armies could respond. Vikings conquered England, Danelaw, Normandy, and Sicily, established trade routes to Constantinople, and reached North America 500 years before Columbus. The Great Heathen Army of 3,000 Vikings conquered 4 of 5 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. They founded Dublin, Kiev, and Novgorod. Their mobility was unmatched, raiding Muslim Seville and Christian Paris in the same campaign. Entire kingdoms paid Dangeld just to make them leave. But Vikings had a strategic limitation. They couldn't hold territory. Brilliant raiders, poor administrators. When they tried to rule England, Alfred the Great defeated them by building fortress networks. When they settled in Normandy, they assimilated into French culture within 2 generations. The Christianization of Scandinavia, 1000 to 1100, ended the pagan warrior culture. The Viking Age didn't end in defeat. It ended in transformation. The Berserkers, Viking warriors who entered psychotic rage, felt no pain, and bit their own shields. Berserkers were elite Viking warriors who fought in a trance. The word comes from Bersark. They wore bear or wolf pelts. Before battle, they entered altered states through rituals, hallucinogenic mushrooms, or hyperventilation, immune to pain, super strong, uncontrollable. They charged without formation, screaming, biting shields, sometimes fighting naked. After battles, they collapsed into deep depression. Berserkers served as royal bodyguards and led assaults. In the saga of Rolf Kraki, 12 berserkers defended a king against hundreds. Medieval texts describe berserkers killing 10 to 20 men alone before falling. At Stamford Bridge, a single berserker held a bridge against the entire English army, killing 40 men before being speared from below. Yet berserkers were single-use weapons. After trance, they were exhausted and vulnerable. They disobeyed orders, sometimes attacking allies. As Vikings converted to Christianity, berserkers were outlawed by the church. In Iceland, berserker behavior was banned in 1123. Society realized psychotic warriors were incompatible with command structures. They vanished after the Viking Age. The Jomsvikings, the only Viking military order with a written code of conduct and monastic discipline. The Jomsvikings were a brotherhood of Viking warriors based in Jomsborg, exact location unknown, likely Pomerania. Founded in the 10th century, they accepted only warriors aged 18 to 50 who passed a combat test. They lived communally in a fortress with no families. Their code forbade talk of fear, retreat, or showing wounds. Vengeance for fallen brothers was mandatory. Loot was divided equally. They were elite mercenaries. Kings paid gold for their services. The Jomsvikings fought in every major Nordic battle of the 10th and 11th centuries. At the Battle of Hjörungavåg, 986, 60 Jomsviking ships faced 180 Norwegian ships. They lost but fought to the last man without surrender. At the Battle of Fyrisvellir, 990, they helped Eric the Victorious conquer Sweden. They were famed for never retreating. When captured, they demanded execution while staring their executioners in the eyes. Sagas describe Jomsvikings laughing as they were beheaded. Yet the Jomsvikings vanished mysteriously in the 12th century. Theories include Jomsborg destroyed by storms, annihilated in battle due to their suicidal code, or absorbed into Christian knightly orders. The fortress has never been found. It may be legendary, but their influence was real. They inspired later medieval military orders like the Templars and Teutonic Knights. They proved Vikings could have discipline equal to Romans. The Templars, the warrior monks who created modern banking and were burned at the stake for heresy. The Knights Templar were a Catholic military order founded in 1119 to protect pilgrims in the Holy Land. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They wore white mantles with red crosses. Their hierarchy included knights, nobles, sergeants, commoners, and chaplains. They built fortresses across Europe and the Middle East. At their peak, they had 20,000 members and controlled 870 castles and strongholds. The Templars were the elite military force of the Crusades. At Montgisard, 1177, 500 Templars and 3,000 Crusaders defeated 26,000 of Saladin's troops. They never surrendered. They fought to the death. Their code forbade ransom or retreat without orders. They were the vanguard in every Crusader battle. But they also invented a proto-banking system. Pilgrims could deposit money in Paris, receive a credit note, and withdraw it in Jerusalem. The Templars became Europe's most powerful bankers, but financial power destroyed them. King Philip IV of France owed the Templars vast sums. In 1307, he ordered the simultaneous arrest of all Templars in France. They were accused of heresy, idolatry, and sodomy. Grand Master Jacques de Molay was burned at the stake in 1314, allegedly cursing the Pope and the king as he died. Both died within months. The Pope dissolved the order in 1312. The Templar fortune vanished. Legends of hidden treasure persist to this day. The samurai, the only warriors who committed ritual suicide if dishonored, and whose descendants ruled Japan for 700 years. Samurai were the warrior class of feudal Japan. They followed Bushido, a code of honor emphasizing loyalty, discipline, and honorable death above life. Trained from childhood in swordsmanship, archery, spear fighting, and unarmed combat, they wore yoroi armor, plates of metal laced with silk cords. They served daimyos, feudal lords, unconditionally. They weren't just warriors. They were administrators, poets, and tea masters. Samurai dominated Japan for 700 years through martial superiority and rigid social hierarchy. At the Battle of Sekigahara, 160,000 samurai fought for control of Japan. Tokugawa Ieyasu triumphed, founding a shogunate that lasted 268 years. Samurai repelled Mongol invasions in 1274 and 1281. Typhoons destroyed the Mongol fleets, giving rise to the myth of the divine wind. Swordmasters like Miyamoto Musashi killed dozens in duels. Bushido demanded seppuku if captured or dishonored. But the samurai were ended not by war, by modernization. During the Meiji Restoration, Japan abolished the samurai class, banned sword carrying, and built a modern conscript army, the samurai's last stand. The Satsuma Rebellion was crushed by peasants with rifles. 40,000 traditional samurai died. Rebel leader Saigo Takamori committed seppuku. Katanas could not defeat machine guns. A 1,000-year warrior culture ended in a decade. The Waffen SS, the Nazi elite troops who committed atrocities while fighting with suicidal fanaticism. The Waffen SS was the military branch of the Nazi SS formed in 1939 as Hitler's personal guard. It expanded to 38 divisions with 950,000 soldiers. Initial criteria: pure Aryan descent, minimum height 1.78 meters, perfect teeth. They had better equipment than the regular Wehrmacht. Elite divisions like Leibstandarte, Das Reich, and Totenkopf led every major campaign. Loyalty was to Hitler alone, not to Germany. The Waffen SS had a fearsome military reputation. On the Eastern Front, SS divisions held lines when the Wehrmacht retreated. At Kursk, Leibstandarte penetrated 80 kilometers into Soviet defenses. In Normandy, the 12th SS Hitlerjugend Division, teenagers aged 16 to 18, held off the British for weeks. They fought to the death. Casualty rates of 90% were common. Soviets executed SS prisoners on sight. They were ideological fanatics willing to die for the master race. Yet the Waffen SS were also war criminals. At Malmedy, they executed 84 American POWs. The Totenkopf Division massacred 100 British prisoners at Le Paradis. Einsatzgruppen murdered 1.5 million Jews. After the war, the Waffen SS was declared a criminal organization. At Nuremberg, members were executed or imprisoned. The Finnish Snipers, the warriors who inflicted 700,000 Soviet casualties in 100 days during the harshest winter of the 20th century. The Finnish Snipers were Finnish soldiers during the Winter War against the Soviet Union. They weren't special forces, citizen soldiers defending their homeland. Basic equipment: Mosin Nagant rifle without scope, skis, white camouflage clothing, deep knowledge of Finnish forests, guerrilla tactics, ambushes, night attacks, vanishing into snow. They fought in minus 40 degrees Celsius temperatures. Finland had 300,000 soldiers. The Soviet Union invaded with 1 million. Finnish snipers caused 5 to 7 Soviet casualties for every Finn lost. Statistically impossible in conventional warfare. Simo Heiha, the White Death, killed 505 confirmed Soviets in 100 days with an iron sight rifle. Soviets called Finns white ghosts. The Red Army lost 700,000 troops, killed, wounded, captured, frozen. Finland lost 70,000. Soviet propaganda collapsed worldwide. But numbers can't defeat geography forever. The Soviets sent 1.5 million more troops. Finland ran out of ammunition and allies. They signed a treaty ceding 11% of their territory, but kept independence. The only country invaded by Stalin that remained free. In the Continuation War, Finland fought alongside Germany against the USSR, but refused to take part in atrocities. They negotiated a separate peace, surviving between two superpowers. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See what's next. Stalingrad. 2 million people fighting for a single city through 5 months of winter. The Battle of Stalingrad was the clash between German and Soviet forces,